What's going on, everybody? I am Michael Anthony, and today we are answering the question, is it time to switch to Canon mirrorless? How you guys all doing? Thank you. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It has been a couple of months since I posted a video, and to be honest with you guys, we are in the middle of one of our busiest wedding seasons, or coming to the end of it, and next year we're gearing up for our busiest wedding season that we have ever had in our lives, and it is incredibly taxing on resources, so we are hiring new people and making sure that we have the ability to continue producing educational content as we get ready next week to film our Elevate lighting course. So just want to update you guys on a couple of things. Our studio has finally completed its transition to the Canon system after a year-long switch back from Sony to Canon. When you have 12 camera bodies and a whole tons of lenses that you have to switch over for you and your team, it's a little bit of a process, but we are completely 100% switched back to Canon now. And when I was making that switch, I had a question to ask myself and my team. We had to figure out if we were going to go all in on Canon mirrorless, or if we were going to switch to, or if we were to stick, should I say, with DSLRs and switch to mirrorless at a later date. So let's talk for a couple of minutes about the benefits to the mirrorless camera system and why you may want to consider switching to the Canon mirrorless, the EOS R platform, or the RF platform, should I say. Well, in the past, the reason why mirrorless has been so attractive and the reason why people were jumping ship from Canon and Nikon to Sony was because Sony had revolutionary autofocus. It made shooting weddings and portraits and all sorts of stuff a lot easier than it had ever been in the past, and they were the only people to have that technology. Now, about a year ago, Canon dropped the EOS R, Nikon dropped the Z6 and the Z7, and these were great first steps into the mirrorless platform as they're introducing those new larger mounts. But those cameras didn't resonate with a lot of their base, and they didn't really entice people to switch over because they lacked critical features that people were really, really excited about, namely the eye autofocus and the autofocus features that were part of the Sony system. Well, just a couple months ago, Canon updated the EOS R platform to version 1.4 of their firmware, which incredibly improved the eye autofocus in that system. Now, in using that system for the last couple of months, I gotta tell you, it is on par with the Sony A7 system. And the Canon dual pixel autofocus really always gave us that object tracking that you see in the Sony A9. So while the acquisition of the eye is not nearly as fast as Sony, it is like right there. It's like first generation or second generation Sony eye autofocus. So for me, that entire argument of switching to Sony for eye autofocus is really kind of off the table. So being that that's the case now that we have that image quality, or that autofocus technology with the Canon bodies, we have a couple of other things we have to consider, right? A lot of people knock the EOS R for it not being a professional camera, and I really think that came from Canon itself. Canon always said that this is not their professional camera, right? But in reality, this really is a professional camera if you think about what makes a professional camera, right? Let's talk about build quality. This is a magnesium alloy body. The buttons, all of the technology, the screen resolution, the EVF resolution, all of that stuff is really good. I mean, it's not bad at all. In fact, the screen resolution, the EVF, these things seem to me at least to be a lot better than the Sony bodies that we had used in the past. But one of the things that really stopped people from buying into this system was the legendary, or the notorious, should I say, dual card slot, or lack thereof, right? That was something that was a big issue for a lot of people. It didn't have two card slots, and if you're a wedding or an event photographer, it's completely understandable why that would be a drawback for you. Now, when I look at this system, okay, as a whole, or in general camera systems as a whole, we have shot millions and millions of images, over the last 8 years. I have not since maybe year one, when we were using really cheap, eBay cards and stuff. I've never had a card failure using professional cards. Now, that being said, it's not to say that can't happen. And that, I think, is where a lot of people's hesitation comes in adopting this system, right? Because if this Canon EOS R had two card slots, it would pretty much check all the boxes that people would want to see in a mirrorless system, something on par with like a Sony A7, but in my opinion, a little bit better because it's got a better screen, a better viewfinder, and now it's got good autofocus, right? The lack of a joystick doesn't bother me because once you learn how to use this camera, you can use your thumb and you can slide around the screen in order to position the focus point where you need it to be, and it takes a little getting used to, but I found that to actually be a little bit more accurate, or a little bit more easy for me than using a physical joystick. Now, that being said, if you're a wedding and event photographer, is it time to ditch your trusty DSLR and move to this Canon system? Now, right now, I'm gonna actually give you an opinion, and you have to take from everything I'm telling you guys and, obviously form your own opinion. I'm gonna say that it's not 100% time to completely switch over all of your bodies to the mirrorless system, right? And I'm not saying that because I think the EOS R isn't ready for prime time. I think it is, actually. I think it's, and I've shot weddings exclusively with this camera and it's performed flawlessly. The reason I say that is because it's a pretty well-known fact right now that Canon is developing a pro body, right? Like every rumor site is out there. Canon has come out and said it a couple of times that this is something that they're looking at seriously. So I think switching completely to this EOS R platform when we're on the horizon right now of seeing, a revolutionary breakthrough in Canon's mirrorless system would be a little bit premature. Now, that being said, I do think it is time to start your transition. Much like we made the transition from Sony to Canon, it took us a year to completely switch over, right? As you guys get into wedding season, it might be time to start acquiring this new RF glass. Because guys, make no mistake about it, this RF glass is exactly the reason why you would want to switch to the Canon system over all of its competitors right now. Canon made the largest, at the time when they came out, they had the largest mount for a mirrorless camera. And what that allows them to do is allows them to change the way that the optics are that attach to this camera. It allows them to bend the light differently, give it a little bit more of a direct line of path, if you will, to the sensor, which actually creates a much better image quality. There's a reason why the new Canon RF glass has gotten such stellar reviews, right? Because it is amazing. And we are in the middle of filming a review right now on the 28-70 f2 and this new RF 70-200, which is incredible. Like to have a lens this small, 7200 length for a wedding photographer is just unheard of. Now, because Sony has a smaller mount, it's not possible for them to create lenses like this, in this nature. A lot smaller 70-200 because of the physics and the optics. If you look at a bunch of the Sony lenses, they're essentially a DSLR lens, a Canon DSLR lens, with a little bit of an attachment on the bottom, a little bit of material to make up for that flange distance between the back of the lens and the sensor where the mirror box would typically be. So that being said, in my opinion, it's time to start making that transition, start acquiring the lenses that you're gonna need, because when Canon drops this mirrorless camera, sometime hopefully in the next year, you guys will be ready to just jump into it and make that switch. The one thing that I don't want you guys to discount if you guys are looking at switching brands is the professional services. Canon, and guys, I can tell you from experience because, we have a lot of cameras and a lot of gear that obviously will need service throughout the year. We had a year-long experience with Sony Professional Services and they're getting better, but Canon right now has absolutely the best service program for professionals. Knowing that I could send a lens in for repair on a Monday, get it back in a day or two, and if I can't get it back in a day or two, have a loaner there immediately. For me, that confidence there is exactly what I need to be able to make that professional switch. And if you are a professional photographer, you do this for a living, that is a really big consideration, and in my opinion, that's why you're seeing on the sidelines of the the big games, in the newsrooms, you're seeing a lot of Canon bodies because of that reason. Because these news houses, these sports houses, these media outlets have tons of cameras, and the ability to get them serviced is a crucial factor, right? So for me, CPS is an important part of choosing a camera brand, which is why we ended up switching back to Canon after about a year and a half. Using the Sony bodies. But getting into it, guys, now it doesn't mean, because I think that you should start acquiring mirrorless, I don't think that as soon as that mirrorless camera drops, whenever it does, if it does, that it means it's off to the races for you guys. I don't think that you guys should necessarily have to make that switch right away. The Canon DSLRs, the DSLR platform is still thriving, right? I mean, they just announced development of the 1DX Mark III. The DSLR is far from dead. There is going to be development still on this platform, at least for, you know, the life cycle of the next camera, which is generally 4 to 5 years for Canon. And for me right now, I'm still shooting weddings with the 1DX Mark II. I think it's an amazing camera, and I think that, you know, anybody using it can agree with me on that. So I don't think the DSLR is dead, but I do think we are on the horizon of the mirrorless revolution, as we have been for the last couple of years. So that being said, I'd like to know what you guys are doing. Are you looking to switch to mirrorless? Is that something that interests you, or do you not care at all? Are you just like, hey, I'm going to use my DSLRs until they're dead, and then whatever the next technology is 10 years down the line, I'm going to go for that, right? Interested to hear what you guys have to say. So if you have an opinion on it, leave it down in the comments below. If you like this video, go ahead and give me a like, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Great talking to you again. Catch you later.